Hey, welcome guys. Bob here, bobsplumbingvideos.com. So you want to learn how to solder some copper tubing? Well, I'll tell you what, follow me into this next segment and I'll show you how I do it. All right, here we are at the bench. I'm going to go over some basic supplies you're going to need on your soldering journey. Top left there is a small cloth. You're going to need a cloth to dampen, to wipe off your joints when you're finished soldering. Next to that, I have my yellow canister of Mapp fuel. Mapp fuel is a fuel that burns at much higher temperatures than propane. That's why I use it. Allows me to get the fitting heated faster. On top of that is a regulator and a tip, which is called their STK1 tip. This is made by a company called Turbo Torch, and that actually gives a nice swirl to the flame and gets that fitting really nice and hot. But you most certainly can use standard propane fuel and a standard propane head. Next to that, we have a roll of lead-free solder, followed by my tub of flux, and we have a flux brush. Flux is a product that you're going to have to apply to the inside of the fitting and the outside of the pipe. It's an acid-based product, and that is going to keep the fitting and pipe from oxidating, and it's also going to allow the solder to flow easily. So let me pan down and I will show you the rest of the supplies you're going to need to go on your soldering journey. Bear with me. Okay. We have straight pair of pliers down there on the left, followed by a pair of channel lock pliers. We have our striker, which will start our propane or Mapp gas up. We have a 3/4 inch fitting brush. We have a 1/2 inch fitting brush. Above those brushes, you're going to see a little mini cutter, a mini tubing cutter. You're going to need a tubing cutter, whether it be mini or a standard size cutter. Next to that, we have a full sheet of Scotch-Brite pad, which is kind of like a Brillo pad. We have a roll of plumber's grit, and what I do is I actually cut these into strips. You can cut them into strips with a pair of scissors, and depending upon how dirty your copper is, you'll either use the Scotch-Brite or you use your plumber's grit. And you can see here it's graded. This is a P180, but it comes 200, 220, etc., kind of like sandpaper. So what I'm going to do is in the next segment, I'm just going to take you through the steps on how to prep the copper. And then what we'll do is we'll actually go over to the vise and actually solder two joints. We'll solder a horizontal joint, we'll solder a vertical joint, and today I'm going to be demonstrating on 1/2 inch copper. So let's move ahead and I'll show you how to go through the process before we actually shoot over to the vise. So I will see you in the next segment. All right, welcome back. Here we are. I'm going to bring up a piece of 3/4 inch copper pipe and a 3/4 inch elbow here, just to demonstrate the cleaning process. And very briefly, this goes for all copper. I don't care what size it is, anywhere from the smallest up to the largest. But I believe that you should clean both inside the fitting as well as outside the pipe. Now, some people will give you differing opinions, but you have to clean this. It has to be absolutely clean. Now, I use my fitting brush here, and just a little word of advice. These fitting brushes, after a while, they'll get loose. They'll lose their ability to clean clockwise. When that happens, you just go counterclockwise, and you'll get a couple of more miles out of them. So that's how that works. Just go in there, clean it out. And then what we'll do is we'll grab our piece of copper here. And as you can see, I already buffed this out, but you basically will go on there and give it a nice buffing. Once we have that done, we're going to grab our flux brush, and we will have dipped it liberally in the flux bucket, and then we're going to put flux on our pipe. So you're going to wipe flux on the outside of the pipe, and you're also going to add flux to the inside of the clean fitting. And you don't have to be slobby about it, just get it in there. Once that's done, we put our pipe and fitting together. And then at this point, we're ready to solder. So when we go over to the bench there, I'll take you through the process. Now, I'm going to be demonstrating on small size copper today, 1/2 inch copper. This is 3/4 inch, and on 1/2 and 3/4 inch copper, I generally will keep my flame in one spot because the Mapp gas is so hot that the heat will travel around the fitting and allow the solder to flow. That's not the case on large size copper. When I'm using large size copper, such as this is 1.5 inches, you're going to have to move that torch around from side to side, from the side of the fitting to the side of the fitting. And by the way, I heat the fitting, I don't heat the pipe. A lot of guys will tell you heat the pipe. I heat the fitting. What happens when you heat the fitting, when you keep the flame on the fitting, whether it be in one spot or you go from side to side on the larger size tubing, an action takes place called capillary attraction. And what that actually does is that the heat actually will draw the solder into the fitting. It'll actually draw it, it'll pull it in just through virtue of the heat alone. And as long as you have this fitting cleaned well and you have your flux on there, it's not going to be a problem. So I'm going to demonstrate that at the vise in the next segment coming up. So stand by and let's get down, and I will give you an example of a horizontal and a vertical joint.